call this regular meeting of council to order. If Alfred could please rise for the national anthem. Okay, I'll ask if there are any disclosures of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Okay, seeing none, we'll go right into our public information meeting. So it is for the 2016 draft fees and charges bylaw. And the purpose of the public meeting is to provide information and gather public comments regarding 2016 user fees and charges bylaw for various municipal services and activities, and for the use of township property in 2016 building permit fees and charges. This public meeting also meets the requirements of Section 7 of the Ontario Building Code Act and Division C, Section 1912 of Ontario Regulation 350-06 of the said Act. So I'll now hand it over to our Treasurer/CAO for the explanation of the rates.
Your Worship, to all of Council and the gallery. So there was a copy of the draft fees charges bylaw attached. The rates haven't been changed since 2014, so that's why it says 2014-15 on it. Some of the rates have went up. Building rates have stayed the same. That's about all.
Okay, are there any questions from council members to staff? Okay, any questions from our members of the gallery? Okay, resounding no. All right, so I will hand it back over to the treasurer for the next steps.
So the next steps, the bylaw was presented to council for final reading on March 8th, 2016 council meeting.
Okay, thank you. So, so in closing, if anybody wishes to provide any additional comments, they can do so at the end of this meeting, or they can issue something in writing by email to the clerk or phone the township this week. Okay, so that's it for the public meeting. We don't have any delegations tonight, so we'll go right into the mayor's remarks. So I will go really quickly here. I attended the pancake breakfast at Port Care's Outreach Center on the 2nd, and it was a really, really good turnout. They were busy the whole time I was there, so it was great to participate. Met a few people from Wainfleet that I hadn't met yet, so it was good to see a mix of Port Colborne, Wainfleet people. I also attended Leadership Niagara in Niagara Falls on the 6th, so that was interesting. It was myself and a few other mayors talking to people who were taking a leadership program and just talking about leadership. So it was good to be there and participate in that. I was also at Yale Crosley on February 7th to support their rowing program, and they really put on a great event. It was a pasta dinner, and they had a silent auction, and they had a great turnout as well. Tomorrow night is the Conservation Authority Board meeting, so it's 6:30. Anybody's interested in attending. And committee of the whole meeting is this Thursday at the region, and I believe it is the Niagara 2041 planning. Alderman Conca brought that up before here at council, so I believe it's surrounding that, discussion surrounding that. And the Rural Ontario Municipalities Association, Ontario Good Roads Association, Roma-Ogra Conference starts this weekend, so Alderman Hessels and Richard Nan and myself will be attending. So Alderman Hessels and I have a delegation on Monday with the MNR to discuss the wetlands. And then I also have another delegation with Mayor Campion and Mayor Maloney to discuss the Welland Hospital, and that's supposed to be with Minister Hoskins. And then I was checking out the agenda that Richard sent, and there's lots of good stuff going on, workshops and seminars, and there's a few keynote speakers too that look really interesting. So that's always, I think, one of the better conferences for us to attend because it's geared to the smaller municipalities. So we're looking forward to that, and we will report back on how that goes. Maybe we'll get to talk to the Premier again. Usually one of us manages to corner her, so she doesn't listen, but did I say that out loud? So Regional Council, next Regional Council meeting is February 25th, and I've been invited to attend a roundtable in Welland with OMAFRA on the 29th. 29th is going to be a busy day. Also on the 29th at 6 p.m. at the Wellandport Community Center, there will be a floodplain mapping open house. So I will be at that. I know the Mayor of West Lincoln will be at that. I'm sure the majority of council, I would suggest, would be in attendance. And then, of course, MPCA staff will be there. So that's to do with the new floodplain lines that they're in the middle of sorting out, I guess, because we went back and said we didn't like the first two attempts. So we'll see what they come back with. But it's the first piece of their communication strategy with regard to the new floodlines. So I would imagine that's going to be, because they saved that one for last because they feel that'll be the biggest one. That seems to have the most, our area has the most impact on residents. So I would encourage everybody to attend that. Also that evening I've been asked to attend to Save the Welland Hospital meeting, which is at Christ Anglican Church that evening. So I'm hoping that I can go to the floodplain meeting and then get to that event for around 8 o'clock. So we'll see if I can magically make all that happen that night. There's another committee of the whole meeting on March 3rd at the region, and then Saturday, March 5th, the fire department is hosting a volunteer recruitment open house, and we've been really advertising that on our Facebook page, and I think I shared it on mine, so hoping to get the word out. And our next council meeting is March 8th, and I believe have we confirmed our budget meeting for March 10th? We're hoping, so that's still tentative, but tentatively put it in your calendars. Okay, and that's it for my mayor's remarks, so we'll go into the adoption of the minutes.
That the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on January 26, 2016 be adopted as circulated.
So we need a mover and a seconder for that. Alderman Dykstra, Alderman Gilmore. Are there any errors or omissions on the minutes? Okay, seeing none in favor, that's carried, and then we'll go into our staff reports.
The Planning Staff Report 5 of 2016 regarding Official Plan Amendment Number 1 of 2015, the Agricultural Notification Clause, and the recommendations contained therein be adopted as circulated.
Okay, so I need a mover and a seconder to get that on the floor. Alderman Dykstra, Alderman Hessels. Michael, do you want to speak to this report?
Thank you, Worship. I'll keep it brief, as council has seen this a couple of times. What council directed staff to do previously was to change the clause from applying to lots in agricultural areas to new lots created anywhere in the township. So that's what the amendment is you see in front of you. Comments from various members of the public, including one member of council and the Niagara South Federation of Agriculture. They were both supportive. They suggested, and this has been included, that the noise and odors as the two nuisances be increased to the 7 that are included within the Farm Practices, the Farming and Farm Production Protection Act. So those are reflected now, they're in bold in my report. The final comment I have is, was received from Louis Shedden, and it noted that that the Act does provide farmers with ample protection from nuisance complaints. I don't see section 8.6.2, which is the relevant when expanding on this protection by any legal means. That said, he noted that the 7 nuisances should be included within the policy, which they are. I'd also add, I provided the council a memo from our lawyer talking about implementation of this policy, and it was considered this clause would go onto the title of a property. That's since been changed. Our lawyer has received word from the registrar office that's not possible. So that's more of an implementation thing, does not specifically affect the policy, but if council approves this, staff will make this as a recommendation, and it will be recommended to go on to the purchase and sale, which will have the same initial effect, and that's what it's got, I guess, for people buying new properties in Wainfleet or vacant lots in Wainfleet, that's where it's going to have the most traction. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that rundown. Are there any questions from council members? Alderman Dykstra.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Mr. Sullivan. So just to clarify that the bullet points that you have highlighted are going to be added to 8.6.2, the dust, the vibration, and the Farming and Food Protection Act.
Your worship, through to Alderman Dykstra, it's actually in the executive summary. It shows the proposed revised policy in italics, and so light, vibration, smoke, insects, and dust will be added as nuisances.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions from council members? Alderman Hassels.
Yeah, I understand this goes on new lots, so if it gets bought and sold again, is it still on that property? Will it always stay on the real estate?
Your worship, through to Alderman Hassels, based on the legal opinion provided, no. The registrar office won't allow this to go onto title, so it would be a condition of approval on the lot when it's created. It would go on to an agreement of purchase and sale after the lot is created, when it's sold to its first owner, and then we have no control over it beyond that point.
Okay, other questions from council? Okay, seeing none, so the recommendation is to receive the report and then adopt this amendment. So I will call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried.
An administrative staff report number 5 of 2016 regarding the Marshville Heritage Village lands lease, and the recommendations contained therein be adopted as circulated.
Okay, mover and a seconder, Alderman Gilmore, Alderman Dykstra. Robin, I don't know if you want to speak to this.
Your worship, to all of council. The lease agreement between the Township of Wainfleet and the Marshall Heritage Society for the lands, referred to as Marshall Heritage Village land, expired on December 31st, 2015. Recently, a meeting was held with some members from the Marshall Society, Mayor Jess, Alderman Gilmore, and some township staff. The meeting was to discuss the lease. During the meeting, a 5-year renewal was proposed of the existing agreement that we have. So no changes to what we have. So staff is recommending we go with the 5-year renewal.
Okay, so any questions from council members? Alderman Hassels?
Going through the lease, so actually they're leasing that land for $1 and maintenance, like I believe the township is cutting the grass and maintaining it. Like that seems kind of, I don't know, when you lease something, that should be their responsibility. I don't believe they pay for any of that stuff. And then I believe they also use the soccer fields for parking. The other groups, they have to pay for field rental or whatever, like baseball pays for their share. So it sounds like they're getting a real good deal. And I guess where I'm coming from, it seems like they are the ones trying to run Wainfleet. Like when other people want to do functions, they make a really big ordeal about it. So I don't know. The first thing, do they have to pay extra for the soccer fields and for grass cutting, or is that all put on the taxpayer?
Yeah, I'm gonna look to Robin about the soccer fields, the grass.
Do you
But
want
we'll-
to, Richard?
Okay, we'll hand it over to Richard.
I think.
Through your worship to Alderman Hassels, the soccer fields, when they use it for the festival, basically, when they come to council, all the fees get waived at council. So they don't pay for the parking, the soccer fields or any of those facilities during the festival. As far as the grass cutting, yes, we do maintain the grass portion, and it takes approximately 5 hours a week with a full-time staff, plus depending on obviously in the spring, we have to trim more often, but usually a student as well for trimming. So on average, it's like $220 a week that we spend when you calculate the wages and benefits. The water portion of it, like they pay for potable water during the they haul it in. We make sure that it's full beforehand, and they fill it afterwards, so that's a wash. We have electrical meter reading before and after, which they pay for the hydro during the festival. There are a few incidentals, obviously, because we can't meter the water, like for their meeting nights, etc. We don't actually have a meter to control how much they use and we use. It's just all on one big system here. So other than that, yeah, it's mostly the grass cutting and so on.
I think Robin wants to speak to it as well.
Through your worship to Alderman Hessel. And another thing in the lease, if you look at it, the grounds are used by, open to the residents of Wainfleet year-round, other than the weekend of Marshville. It can be used as a park. If you look at it, as a resident, we can go through there and use it as a park when we're walking.
Yeah, I don't know, it seems like they pull in quite a bit of revenue, and it's at the taxpayer's expense, I is kind of what I'm getting at, and to get it for $1, I don't know, that sounds awfully cheap. Somebody's making money here, and it's not the township.
Do we know how much, because when we pay an X amount of money for the insurance, so it's about $1,500 a year, I think, is it?
What we pay, our
Yeah.
portion, yes.
So I'd be curious to know, I don't think if you added it all up, it's a big amount of money for, like Robin had said, people do use that during, during the summer months. Like I know I've gone over there and done, I don't know how many family pictures of Wainfleet families, photograph weddings there. There always seems to be other people go there too for those. So I mean, it's definitely a benefit even when it's not, being used during the summer months. So I don't know if in the grand scheme of things it's a huge amount of money when you factor in what the grass cutting would be, like a rough amount, and then the insurance, and you're saying they pay their hydro during the festival, and then they do the Christmas in the village as well. That draws a lot of people to the community. So while Robin's looking for that, Alderman Dykstra, you had a question or comment?
Through your member, just in regards to the insurance, could you clarify as to the insurance on the buildings or liability? Would Marshville not be carrying their own insurance waiver as far as liability during the festival? Like what insurance cost is for the taxpayer and what is Marshville's, just to be clear?
Through your worship to Alderman Dykstra, we on our insurance policy, we insure their buildings and some comprehensive insurance, which we bill Marshville for 75% of the insurance on the buildings that were there prior to 2004. It was part of the lease, and everything after that they pay 100%. They also have their own insurance to cover incidentals that happen during the festival. So they have 2 insurance policies.
Approximately how much is the insurance that we're paying?
Approximately $1,500 is our portion of the old buildings. I was just trying to find the exact amount.
So we're looking at $1,500 insurance, and then basically wages for grass cutting for $1,800 you figure a year? Okay. Alderman Gilmore, you had a,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of things. Robin mentioned their buildings. They're really township buildings. So once they move a building there, we own the building. And as far as the grass cutting goes, the more buildings they put there, the less grass you have to cut, because either way we're going to cut it. So we're splitting hairs here. I think that we have a really unique village there that would be the envy of a lot of small communities, and a really good volunteer group that runs it. So I'm not sure why we even want a medal in it myself. One of the seminars I went to at the AMO conference was about volunteerism in small communities, and it was just highlighting how important that is in a small community to have a group of engaged volunteers. We certainly have that, and yes, it's somewhat underutilized, but I'm not sure that Richard Mann is interested in coordinating the volunteers to take it over. So I guess my feeling is that we really shouldn't be meddling in this in any way, myself.
Alderman Dykstra?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Alderman Gilmore, for bringing those points. In those points, you suggested the buildings are the property of Township of Wainfleet, which brings one other concern that I have. I mean, I think Marshall's a great thing. I think it puts Wainfleet on the map. I think it's a great thing. It is an absolute great bunch of people that are running it over there, but I'm wondering about longevity and what's going to happen down the road with the future maintenance of those buildings. The only thing that I think is missing out of this agreement is some sort of bank account or fund saved for the rainy day for when those volunteers don't show up. And the future maintenance for the Township of Wainfleet is going to be the taxpayers paying to maintain those buildings and put cedar shakes on those roofs and do the stonework and the expensive sort of maintenance. So I don't know whether through a heritage grant we can get funding, or whether we can be billing Marshville or asking Marshville to be putting money away for future. That's what I would like to see. Like I don't know what grants are out there. Hopefully when Mr. Smith gets here, we can go maybe after a heritage grant or something. I think it's a great thing. I'm concerned about my children and grandchildren and everybody down the road that are going to have to fund these things and perpetually maintain them to the type of status they are now. We don't want them to become derelict, and we can't have our infrastructure here in Wainfleet suffering because we have to maintain some old buildings. So I would like to see some sort of fund being kicked into. My 2 cents only.
When we met with them, we talked a little bit about a succession plan, did we not? Like they were saying that they had kind of a whole new group of young volunteers coming in to run this. So like they were kind of slowly, that was the impression I got, starting to not hand it over, but kind of grooming a new generation to be responsible for it. So I totally get what you're saying. So I guess it just depends. Like I feel safe with another 5 years, because I think before, was it 10 or 15 that we had, the lease had been, the last time, was it 10? 10? Okay, so now we're going with 5, kind of a shorter stretch. And we did talk too about, we don't see the board members, we really don't, have any kind of relationship with them, except at the festival. I'll go and volunteer, and I know that they'll make requests to use the kitchen for the soup and all that kind of stuff. But beyond that, we had suggested, because we had quite a lengthy discussion with them, that we get in the habit too to meet with them on a regular basis to kind of be more apprised of what's going on and where they want to land. And we had some good discussion too about future projects, possible future projects that maybe we as politicians could help them with. And it would take a while, probably talking a few years, but so it was a good discussion. So I guess it just really depends on council's comfort level with with the 5 years. I know I'm like, knowing that they're grooming the next group, I mean, I think 5 years is okay for the renewal, but it's up to council. You had another comment?
Again, through you, Madam Mayor, maybe maybe what I'm asking for, maybe we could put this back on Marshville. Maybe, I mean, I don't really have a problem with the lease, but maybe we can put this back on Marshville and ask them, could they get creative and could they come up with some sort of, it's great that they're gonna have volunteers for down the road, but what if it becomes old and stale for somebody, they don't wanna look after it anymore? Like I said, what's the matter with, look what we're doing with our budgets, we're putting infrastructure money away. Why can they not be building that fund on their own? I mean, maybe we can put it back on them. I'm not saying I wanna hold up this lease or anything like that, I'm just saying maybe they can get creative, and maybe they can get some creative funding, or maybe we can reach out for some grants, some heritage grants for future maintenance of those buildings.
Alderman Gilmore?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, I agree with Alderman Dykstra. They are thinking about their ongoing succession planning, and that's, obviously, some of the members are older, and I've addressed that with them personally and in the meeting. And it would be a good idea to suggest to them that they start to create a legacy fund, for lack of a better term. The 5-year thing, what that does is give every sitting term of council an opportunity to look at the lease, whereas before it was a longer period of time, and you didn't have any reason to interact with them. So I think it's a good term, and it's a good suggestion to bring that back to them. We want to see a plan for their ongoing succession, and I think that it's a good idea to suggest that they set aside some of their funds. Right now, I mean, people think that they make all this money, but everything they take in, they spend. So there's no big pool of money sitting there that we don't know. But certainly that's something that could be suggested to them, that, annually they need to set aside some of that, not spend it all, and then it'll be available in the event that happens. So worst case scenario is they all have to be torn down and disposed of, which hopefully that doesn't happen. No, but I'm just suggesting, right, that has to be paid in some way. So.
You got a follow-up?
Through you, Madam Mayor. With that being said, so should we ask for that? Should we formally ask for that in writing? There's just, just put it back on them that they create, to use your terms, a legacy fund for future maintenance, that the township, I'm not saying that we won't sign the deal or do the deal, I'm just saying the township asking that, you would come back with some sort of a legacy fund or look into going forward with something like that. How do we formally ask for that?
I think I would think, so you're saying approve this tonight, but send some sort of request. So I think it would just be a matter of drafting a letter with the clerk from me and all of council to the board members and saying, we ask that you look at drafting some sort of like you made a good point about comparing it to like our infrastructure levy, the same idea, yeah. And we can sit down with the treasurer. I mean, we don't have to just put it, we can provide resources like from the township to assist with that, so. Okay. Alderman Hessels, you had another question or comment?
Okay, is it the board that you're actually dealing with and has the ownership of Marshville, or is it an individual? Because, yeah, the board members, they're all volunteers, I believe, but I think the ownership is a different thing.
Well, I'm saying board because is that not who we met with? They were members of the board, or you're saying they're separate, they have a board, but they're owners?
Who's the ownership of Marshville like that?
I thought it was the board. I thought they are
All the board members have decision-making powers, is what you're telling me.
I would think.
Okay. Consists of how many members, you know?
No.
We met with the president and the treasurer.
I don't know, I think there is a little bit of board members and actual ownership of it, because there's one guy leading the charge, and he has all his volunteers and board members under that, so I don't think we have the whole picture here. I'm a little skeptical about it, so, because they will not open if it's a board, shouldn't they be opening their books to you too then? But like on money they have come in and go out.
Your worship to Alderman Hessels. For one, to open their books to us, we do not fund Marshville. So I don't think legally they have to, we could ask for their financial statements, but legally, we don't fund them, such as we fund the library. The Township of Wainfleet funds the library, so we have the right to see their financial statements. Marshville does come to council, just as some other groups, and ask for maybe waiver of fees and things like that, but I mean, I don't think legally they have to show us their financial statements. They lease a piece of land from us, and they have buildings on that land, but I mean, they may show us just because to keep good relationships, but I don't think legally they have to, because we don't fund them.
Alderman Gilmore.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to be clear again, when you use the word ownership, I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, because the ownership of the buildings belongs to the township. So they don't really own any assets other than, I guess, the control over their group of volunteers. And just to Robin's point about the financial statement, they did address that in a conversation I had with our dean, and I believe that they're open to giving us an executive summary of their annual revenue and expenses. He said that he would be open to doing that. Whether whether we have the ability to make them or not, I don't know. But I did suggest that to him, that would be a possible good thing for them to do. But again, about the ownership, I'm not sure what you're referring to when you use that word.
Well, the ownership of Marshville Heritage, I know the buildings are the township, but the brand name, that's an ownership. It's like a title, so somewhere down the road it could be sold to another. I'm pretty sure it's registered, right? Marshville Heritage would be registered.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure I follow.
Through your worship to Alderman Hessels, the lease agreement is actually in the name of Marshville Heritage Society Incorporated, so they are an incorporated entity. According to the lease agreement, that's who the agreement's with. So if they're incorporated, they have to be registered.
Great.
So the society itself is a registered society.
So someday it could be sold to another group or whatever.
Yeah, like every organization.
Right. That's the ownership.
But they have.
Yeah, Robin, did you wanna comment on?
To your worship, to Alderman Hessel, I guess any corporation name could be sold for something, but Marshville doesn't actually own anything to sell, so I don't know what they would sell. For them to sell their corporation, it would make the lease of the land, I think, would be gone, and the ownership of the buildings by the townships once it's on our land, so I don't know what they would sell.
Okay, so do we have any other questions or comments regarding renewing this? So we've added, I don't know if we've added this as an amendment, or if that was just a direction to staff that we can do without a separate motion amendment. So Alderman Dykstra, do you want to move that amendment then to do a letter to talk about a legacy fund, I guess is what we're going to call it. So can I get a seconder for that motion? So any discussion on the amendment to this report? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question on the amendment. All those in favor? That's carried. So if any further discussion then on the report? Okay, seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Okay, and that's carried. Okay, so now we will move on to our last report.
Building Staff Report 2 of 2016 regarding the building permit report for January of 2016 and the recommendations contained therein be adopted and circulated.
Mover and a seconder, Alderman Gilmore, Alderman Hessels. Any discussion or questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. And now we're going into correspondence.
The report of the correspondence to council dated February 16th, 2016, and the recommendations contained therein be adopted and circulated.
Mover and a seconder to get the correspondence out. Alderman Dykstra and I see Alderman Gilmore. Okay, so if you want, I'll start to run through it. So we have number 24, which is a request for advertising, and I said to Robin again that once things are settled and the new CAOs here, we're going to look at a policy about permissive grants requests, because we get those and we struggle with those. So I don't know if someone wants to make a motion to maybe Alderman Hessels?
Yeah, let's say receive it for information.
Sure. Can I get a seconder for that? Alderman Dykstra, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. And then I'm going to run down to number 31, which was the town of Fort Erie passing a resolution about e-books. And so Robin did talk to Lori from the library, and Lori said that this has, because they're not funding this anymore, this has Lori's budget is actually up a bit, which we'll find out on March 10th. So, and this was one of the big reasons why, it's my understanding. So I think Lori was hoping that we would support this. So I don't know if everybody's good with that, if somebody wants to make a motion to support. Moved by Alderman Hessel, Alderman Gilmore. So all those in favor, that's carried. And then on to number 34. So this one is a request for, so we've got a request for an ad and table sponsorship, and so this is for the 50th anniversary of the library. So this one, I think, is pretty important. And I think some of us are attending, are we not? Yeah, got a table for that. So I don't know if we want to do all of them, or just to do the ad. We can do an auction item or door prize for sure, because we have stuff hanging around here. But so I don't know if you three gentlemen have an idea of what we want to contribute. Extra.
Through you, Madam Mayor, does council still, maybe Robin could answer this? Do we still have money left in the council sort of budget? Money left over?
Your worship, to Dexter, we don't have a budget yet.
Do we have any reserves from last year? I would suggest that we, I would suggest we support them.
Okay. In all three, so, okay. So do I have a seconder for that? Alderman Gilmore, and I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. And then we have a request from Mr. Augustine regarding Gallinger, I thought it was Gallinger Road, Gallinger Street, and creating a pathway. So this was something, I had actually had a discussion with Dan about this a couple weeks ago. So I don't know if either of you would like, Michael or Richard, would like to kind of explain the thought process here for those who aren't familiar.
Your worship, to all of council, this to refresh council's memory on this, this was one of the many roads that Daniel Partners researched for us to determine who owned or which roads the township owned. It was determined that the township owned the north end of Sandal Road from, I believe, Hawk North, and that the lands to the south of on Sandal Road South, which are currently, they look private. The township made a claim which was accepted by the courts, and so we now do own that. The question Mr. Augustine has had, he's been in touch with me a few times on this. I guess, establishing our presence through a sidewalk or something like that. So I'll pass it off to Richard now.
Through your worship to council. It's part of the land, right now, basically the property owners are using the property itself on either side. And because he donated the land, he would actually like to see a formalized walkway through there. The intent isn't to build a road through there, but it is to develop a walk path and to show that the ownership is on the municipality. The issue we may have is we have to actually find the boundary lines again, identify them, and we may have to have some encroachment issues that we may have to deal with on that.
Alderman Dykstra.
Through you, Madam Mayor, would it be, I would suggest, since we did go for the land, go after the land to say that was ours, I would suggest that we look into costs for this, maybe at the very least get it surveyed, and maybe between Richard and Michael, they could work at getting some costs and maybe report back to council on some sort of, as well as, what about that LES money? We couldn't have used any of that money from the lakeshore enhancement, so.
Through your worship to Alderman Dykstra. The property itself, part of the reference plan was done, so it's actually been surveyed. We just have to identify them again, find the locations, and then we could come back as a report to council through reviewing the encroachment policy that we do have, and identify the different areas that are encroaching, and we could come back with a report. And again, we could apply for last funding to develop that as part of the proposal as well. But the first initial attempt is, once the snow's gone, is we can actually go and identify the bars and the property lines, because they were identified in the survey.
So you want to,
Make that
okay,
motion.
for a report then, for them to do some research and, okay, and come back with that. Do I have a seconder for that? Alderman Gilmore? So any discussion on, so that this is an amendment, we're amending it to request a report. So any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, and now there's only one more that we need to deal with, and then if anybody else wants to discuss any of the other ones, that would be wonderful. So the last one is number 46. So there was a little bit of confusion, and I did send an email out this afternoon that this person had talked about. I think originally it was photographing the seniors and maybe in a portion of the lobby. So I had directed, thought it was a great idea. I tend to like photography as support the arts, as people know. So I directed her to Jeremy, but then it became a little bit larger scale project, which then Richard thought, well, now I have to bring this to council. So there were quite a few dates, and I had a feeling council wasn't really, because we get asked for waivers for the rooms quite regularly, and a lot of times we say no. So and there were so many days, I had a feeling it wasn't probably going to be passed by council. So we were talking maybe one weekend that if it wasn't being used, that we could probably sort that out. You seem to think that would be palatable, and then maybe we could help with some advertising on the Facebook page. So I don't know if everybody saw that email, but she was good with that. So I think we could probably, I don't know if we need to then just receive this for information or suggest a weekend and throw it back to, okay, so do we want to do that? Alderman Dykstra?
Through you, Madam Mayor, just a question. Through the weekend is great. I'm just wondering, could we not overlap maybe one of the seniors' days there on Tuesdays and Thursdays? Is there any way we could overlap so that they could see this? Or I don't know whether any of the area schools were going to go over there. And so
Richard seems to know a little bit more about the vision for this, so I'll let him speak to this.
Through your worship to all members of council, it originally started that she wanted to take pictures of the seniors, and that's what I was understanding. So I didn't have a problem with that, and we were going to work with it. But then it was, she wanted to photograph all the families in Wainfleet. And that's why she wanted all these dates, to try and get all the families to come here for photographs, so that's why it became really large. So we suggested, the mayor and myself discussed it. Yes, I have no problem if she wants to take a day or so to overlap and work with the seniors, take the photographs here. I have no problem with it. It's just when all these dates came out, I was like, this is getting a little bit too big, so that's why I said to come to council. But we suggested that maybe if they advertise enough early enough throughout the municipality, throughout the township, that we could give them a weekend and try and arrange that everybody that wants to participate can come in that weekend, rather than tying up a month and a half worth of dates. So that was something we discussed as far as if we can advertise, put it out there for everybody. If they want to come, they can call, sign up for times or whatever they want to do. But that's what we suggested to her, and she was in favor of that. It's just now is the planning stage is behind it.
So Alderman Dexter, would you like to make a motion to direct Richard then to negotiate a weekend where it's obviously not being used, probably more into the spring now, I would think, or maybe around the time the ice comes out, because it's usually pretty busy, so.
Yes, I'd be happy to make that motion.
Okay, would somebody like to second that motion? Alderman Gilmore, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's carried. Does anyone want to address any other correspondence before we vote on it as amended? Okay, doesn't look like it, so I will call the question on the correspondence as amended. All those in favor? Carried. And now into the bylaws.
The following bylaws be now read a first and second time this 16th day of February 2016. Bylaw number 7 of 2016 being a bylaw to adopt amendment number 1 of 2015 to the official plan for the Township of Wainfleet. Bylaw number 8 of 2016 being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement between the corporation of the Township of Wainfleet and the Marshville Heritage Society for the lease of the Marshville Heritage Village lands. Bylaw number 9 of 2016 being a bylaw to provide for the issuing of permits for the moving of oversized, overweight loads, objects, or structures on highways under the jurisdiction of the corporation of the Township of Wainfleet.
Okay, can I get a mover and seconder for those? Alderman Gilmore and Alderman Dykstra. Any discussion on the bylaws? Okay, seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, are there any notices of motion tonight? Okay, no proclamations. Does anybody have other business? Really? Nobody has, so it's always just Alderman Conk, and she's not here, but I'm sure she's following along. Okay, so no other business. Oh, sorry. Oh, Richard. Okay. So no other business. So then we're going, so I need a motion to move into closed session. Are you gonna, you wanna read that? All right.
The council now move in closed session to discuss an item under section 239, subsection 2, subsection C of the Municipal Act 2001, potential acquisition or disposition of land, confidential staff reports, PSR 24 of 2015 and number 6 of 2016, and the adoption of the minutes of the in-camera meeting of council for January 26, 2016.
Mover and seconder. Alderman Gilmore, Alderman Hessels, all those in favor, and that's carried. So if the overwhelming amount of people in the gallery wish to stay, I don't think we're going to be too long. So we'll just leave it with them to decide.